Coming to you from the International City County Management Association Annual Conference in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, this is GovLove, a podcast about local government. I'm Lauren Palmer, the co-founder of EverStrive Solutions, a full-service public sector consulting firm, and your host for this episode. GovLove is produced by ELGL, the Engaging Local Government Leaders Network. This week, GovLove is on site in the Berg at the ICMA conference, the premier gathering for local government management officials. We are sharing and discovering new ideas and solutions for managing local governments, and we're talking with an incredible lineup of ICMA guests about the latest topics and trends in local government management. My guests for today's episode are Sam Badger and Decker Ploehn. Sam is a graduate student in the Marvin Andrews Jane L. Morris Fellowship at Arizona State University, and she's also an intern with the City of Scottsdale, Arizona. Decker is the city manager in Bettendorf, Iowa, and at this ICMA conference, he is being recognized with an incredible 50-year service award for his time in service to local governments. And as your host, I may periodically interject my 2 cents as a 20-year service award recipient this year for ICMA. So get ready for a fun conversation representing multiple generations and perspectives in the local government community. Sam and Decker, welcome to GovLove.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
You are welcome. We're so glad to visit with you today. Before we start our interview, we love to start with a lightning round for our guests just to get to know you a little bit better. So Sam, I'm going to start my first question with you. What is something that you are reading or watching that you would recommend to our GovLove listeners?
Sure. So something that I started reading during my city and county management course that I'm rereading now is The Leadership Challenge by Kuze and Posner. And it's essentially a guidebook on effective leadership through a scope of interpersonal workplace dynamics.
Okay. Who is the author again?
Kuze and Posner.
Yeah, I have not heard of this. Okay, thanks for the recommendation. Decker, what about you? What's something that you're reading or watching that you would recommend to our listeners?
Well, I don't read as much as I used to. I'm a podcaster now. I listen more than I did. I love revisionist history with Malcolm Gladwell, and I can't wait for his new book, Revenge of the Tipping Point. And I did just finish Liz Cheney's book on Oath and Honor. And I got a little occasional magic short stories, which that little book is nice. So that's it.
That was awesome. Several recommendations. And we always appreciate a shout out for podcasts here on GovLove. So thanks for that encouragement. All right, next question. Would love to hear what you have enjoyed most about Pittsburgh so far. And Decker, I'm going to let you go first, and we're just going to clue our listeners in here to a sad fact that unfortunately Decker was not able to travel to the conference. So we are bringing you into the interview today remotely. So I know that unfortunately you have not been able to spend any time in Pittsburgh this week. Maybe you can share with us something that you are bummed to miss since you weren't able to travel.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, thanks, Lauren. My wife got COVID on Tuesday, and she's been pretty sick. She had walking pneumonia for a couple of weeks, so we decided that it was best if I stayed home. But I did. We had a Summick reunion. Lyle Summick, who's a consultant to a lot of us in the country, we had a reunion for Lyle on Saturday night. So I actually was partially in Pittsburgh and had a reunion for him. I was in Pittsburgh in 2007, so I remember the city very well, and I know we would have had a great time, and we'll definitely go back. The people were lovely then, and I'm sure that it's the same. So unfortunately, I'm not there, but I'm happy to be with you this morning.
Well, we're so glad you could join us remotely. Thank goodness for technology. And I'm glad to hear that your wife is doing better. And that's cool that you could participate in a little bit of the conference remotely.
And I'm getting selfies from my colleagues. Apparently my picture is someplace on a stanchion. So I am getting pictures from people. So that's kind of a nice little touch.
It is. I have seen your picture on that stanchion, Decker. In fact, I'll probably send you a selfie here when I see it later at the conference.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. That's great that people are engaging. We love that at the Engaging Local Government Leaders Network. Sam, what about you? What have you been enjoying about Pittsburgh?
Well, coming from Arizona, I would be remiss if I didn't say that I appreciated the weather change. It's a lot
Okay.
cooler here. In addition to that, I've really loved brushing up against all of the events that are going on around the city. So one of the things that I just happened upon yesterday was some of the performances for the jazz festival going on. So that's been really lovely to see.
Oh, very cool. I haven't seen that. You're giving me some things to be checking out. Okay. And then, final question for both of you. What is your best tip for maximizing a conference experience? Sam, we'll let you go first.
So with everything going on, it's hard to choose what to go to and what to miss out on. So I try to prioritize attending sessions which provided the most value to me in the moment. And then I save some time to get to know the city that we're in. So I found that I'm better able to digest the messages that I'm getting while exploring the streets of Pittsburgh. I try to imagine what these conversations mean for the people who are walking around me in the square. Um, and it gives me kind of a ground level perspective to bounce these ideas off of.
I love that suggestion. Yeah, that's kind of a different way to apply what you're learning in the sessions. Decker, what about you? You've been going to conferences for 50 years. What's your pro tip for maximizing the experience?
Find the best bar in town and go there often.
Well said. Friends, listeners, you heard it here from somebody with 50 years experience, okay?
Exactly.
Find a good watering hole. All right. Well, appreciate both of you getting through our lightning round. Now we're going to get into the heart of our interview. So we want to start just learning a little bit more about both of your career paths. So Sam, we're going to let you go first. Tell us a little bit about how you got into your current role.
Sure. So my undergraduate studies were focused more in architectural design, but during that program, I wanted to use my future career to be part of meaningful change in communities. So I was more interested in the moment at the intersection of social justice and the built environment. So I ended up pursuing Arizona State University's concurrent master's program in public policy and urban planning to kind of marry those two um, topics.
Okay.
And since then, oh, sorry, go
No, go
ahead.
ahead. No, go ahead. I think you were going where I was going to ask you to go. So carry on.
Sure. So since then, I've joined the Marvin Andrews and Jane Morris Fellowship that prepares MPA and MPP students for executive management roles in city and county government. And since becoming a fellow, it's really solidified my plans for working in local government. Currently, I work in Scottsdale, Arizona City Manager's Office as their Marvin Andrews Fellow, and as a partner to the fellowship, Scottsdale holds interviews and hosts a new fellow each year. So I was really thrilled to learn that I've been selected for the role this year.
Okay, great. Thanks. And Decker, tell us about your career. I mean, you've got a heck of a resume here, and we've got like a 30, 45-minute podcast. So try to give us the Cliff Notes version, but we want to hear all about your distinguished career.
Well, a lot less academic than Sam. I started out as a police officer in 1975 here at the city. Worked my way through patrol and then detective bureau, and then I became the chief when I was 33 years old. Probably wasn't quite ready for that, but I did become chief then of a small department. We had 30 officers at that time. And in 1989, after some financial trouble, I was asked to become the interim city administrator and served in that capacity for about 7 months. And on April Fool's Day, 1990, I was sworn in as city administrator, and I have been the city administrator ever since. You know, really great career, and I've learned so much during that period of time. So my background is almost more operational than Sam's, but uh, it's been great fun.
Decker, it's really incredible. And we're going to talk more about your career in our conversation here. But I think the average lifespan for a city manager these days is like, what, 5 to 7 years? So you are really doing something right there in Bettendorf, and we're eager to hear more about what you're up to.
Great.
Yeah. Okay, well, I want to hear from both of you just more about the communities that you serve. So, Sam, we'll start with you. Just tell us a little bit more about Scottsdale, Arizona, for people who may not be familiar with that community.
Sure. So I am one of 2,700 employees who serve Scottsdale. We have about 245,000 residents who enjoy living in a community that offers an elevated sense of business opportunities and quality of life. Some of our key industries include IT services, finance, healthcare innovation, logistics, tourism, and corporate headquarters. One fun fact about Scottsdale is that it's the host for San Francisco Giants spring training.
Okay.
So it's really fun to get out there during the spring and to go see some baseball games. I just wrapped up this year's annual report, which takes budget information and city activities over the past year and creates an illustrative booklet for residents.
Cool. Okay, Decker, what about you? Tell us about Bettendorf.
Well, I'm in Bettendorf, Iowa. We are right on the Mississippi River, about 165 miles west of Chicago and about 180 miles east of Des Moines, Iowa. And we are part of the Quad Cities, which is 5 cities. We just keep changing. We were Tri-Cities, we were Quad Cities. One time we were going to be Quint Cities, but we saw where it was going, so we came back. So we're Quad Cities. It's the home of John Deere in Moline, Illinois, across the river, the Rock Island Arsenal. And we're about 450,000 people total in the metro area here. And right on the Mississippi, having a river like that right in your backyard is kind of fascinating. And we are currently in a great big youth sports complex environment, TBK Bank Sports Complex in our northern part of our town. It's a tremendous sports complex that's happening there, and where all of our growth is in the city.
All right, very cool. You've got a lot going on, and I started my career in Iowa. It holds a special place in my heart. So I know what an incredible community you're serving up there, and thanks for everything that you're doing. So, Decker, listen, 50-year service award from ICMA. It's amazing. It's rare. They don't give these out very often. Congratulations, and thank you so much for your legacy of service in this profession. Want to just hear more about your experience over the last 50 years, and maybe just start by telling us, what do you feel like has changed the most about local government over your career?
Well, clearly, I think the whole issue of civility. People are more apt to, when they do complain, they're more apt to be angry. Dialogue is fascinating to me sometimes. The smallest things that people blow out of proportion. As a former police officer, I saw my share of conflict, and I always get amazed at what people get mad about and what they rave about, or rage about. But clearly that's been a factor. I think the pace has changed. Not that it wasn't strong pace when I came on board, because we did a lot of things in my early career that I thought were pretty quick. But I think with email and text and our ability to answer things or to be 24/7, I think sometimes we're not doing the critical thinking we need to be doing.
Interesting.
And we're working on that with our teams right now. In fact, the book that Sam talked about, we did a book study with the Coos and Posner Leadership on the Line book with our department head and division head team a couple years ago. So I was encouraged when I heard her mention that. So I think helping people to think critically about what they're doing and taking time to think critically is a skill that I think has, I don't want to say gone away, but isn't as much emphasized. And we're working on that here inside our organization to try to get people to slow the pace down a little bit, answering on email immediately and thinking through what we're saying or doing and be more deliberate. I think that's the biggest change that I've seen.
Yeah, that's smart. That really makes sense. When I worked in city management in Iowa, Decker, you really had a big reputation. People really saw you as this warm and welcoming leader at the state level, and people throughout the state really look up to you. So I'd love to hear you just talk about how you build relationships and support the city management profession in the state of Iowa and beyond.
Well, thanks, Lauren. Thanks for noticing. I do think it's important um, for those of us that are in the profession to be welcoming and encouraging to those that are just coming in. I think it's important to have those relationships, and I work hard at that. I tell everybody, put me in your contacts. I'm a good person to have in your contacts. I have a lot of relationships, and you should do the same. Or the folks that get as many contacts as you can, and then be deliberate about sharing a drink with them, sharing a story with them, or inquiring about how it's going in their neighborhood. We're all in the same boat. It's just the size of the river or the size of the boat's a little different, but it's the same stuff, in my opinion. So I just love being part of the state association. I was president of that association a long time ago, and I think it's important for those of us that have been here a while to be welcoming and be authentic with people. So I love doing that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for setting that example. And along that vein, what advice do you have for the up and comers like Sam to have a successful 50-year career, just like you?
Well, getting involved in the community, I think, is a really important thing. Um, I'm involved in a lot of things. Rotary, I'm on the board of directors of the First Tee of the Quad Cities. I chair that board. I've been involved in the John Deere Classic Golf PGA Professional Golf Tournament. Try everything. Get on state boards or state initiatives. Anything you can do. Be part of your league, the Arizona League, the Iowa League. But get involved and do things that make a difference globally in your life. And I think that that's the one thing that I think has helped my success is I'm active in a lot of ways, and I love doing that.
Great advice. All right, Sam, well, we want to bring you into this conversation a little bit more. You're in a prestigious graduate program. You're getting great experience through your internship. The future is wide open. What's next for you? What's your ultimate career ambition?
First, I'm going to be celebrating my graduation with a vacation to Scotland.
Okay, cool.
And then after that, I'm going to start my search for management associate positions. My ultimate career goal is to become a city or town manager. So, trying to be thoughtful and intentional about um, my steps towards that, building the skills and experiences needed to do that to the best of my ability.
That's awesome. Well, you're reaching an international audience here through GovLove. So, hiring managers, we've got some talent for you here. Sam, when do you graduate? Do you graduate in the spring?
I graduate in May.
Okay. And then you're off to Scotland for how long? A few weeks?
2 weeks.
That sounds magical. I'm glad you're taking some time to do that.
Just so you know, they do have scotch in Scotland.
Oh, okay. Another pro tip from our seasoned manager. Don't miss that, Sam. Sam, in preparing for this interview, I Google stalked both of you. Okay, anything that's online about both of you, I read. So, Sam, one of the things I learned about you is that you're interested in novel approaches to community engagement. And I will just say, I've been meeting a lot of emerging talent at the conference this week, and this is a recurring theme. I'm meeting a lot of young people and students who are really jazzed about doing community engagement in a fresh and new way, which is super exciting. So, what's the key to successful community engagement today and for the future?
I think from my perspective, community engagement requires our residents to understand the ways in which they can engage with government. I hope that through, some of the efforts we're already doing with citizen academies and perhaps the integration in the future of civics courses in primary education, I'm hoping that those kinds of avenues can help make interested residents aware of their opportunities. I know when I was younger, government was not on my radar. It wasn't because it wasn't appealing, but I think, as a young person, you don't have very much control in your own life. And so you don't really think about like the application of how your community influences your household, your schools, the services that you get. And so I think by building awareness early on in children is an important factor. And building upon that as residents get older, um, through awareness campaigns, through public events, how do we build that into the minds of our residents where in the private sector, I feel like they do it a little more effectively, or career counselors have that on their minds more than local government. And I think that there's something to be said for the initiatives that we take to connect with our residents in a way that highlights some of our niches.
Yeah, I think the future of community engagement is really exciting. And Decker, I welcome you to weigh in here. I mean, when I started my career, community engagement was a town hall meeting at 6 p.m. on Thursday at City Hall, and whoever showed up was the voice of the community. And maybe you'd send like the ward council member out to do a town hall meeting in their district, but that was it. I mean, there wasn't a lot of creativity going on in community engagement. So it's exciting for me to kind of see this trend and shift in local government.
Yeah, I think
Absolutely.
you're.
Yeah, go ahead,
Yeah,
Decker.
I think you're exactly right. I think the world's changed and we have to change with it. So I love that.
Yeah. Sam, you made a really interesting career shift from interior design in your undergraduate program now to city management. So just tell us more about that. What excites you about a career in local government?
Sure. So, meaningful change is something that I touched on earlier, and that's what drew me to the public sector. I believe that change is easiest to see at the local level, and it's through implementing programs to meet residents' needs that we accomplish that growth. So, one of the things that um, took me kind of out of the design field and into local government was as a designer, there wasn't a lot that my work could contribute intentionally towards meaningful change. You are kind of at the mercy of what your goals are from your client. But I wanted to be a more active participant, I guess I'll say. So after conversations with my program coordinator and some of my supervisors at the time, um, they threw around, social policy and if I wanted to keep the built environment of that, of maintaining the urban planning component. So it really came down to the fact that I wanted my work to have purpose with the community.
Well, you found it. Local government is definitely a purpose driven field. Okay, I'm going to take a break now as podcast host and let the two of you take over. So, Sam, what's a question you'd like to ask Decker based on his years of experience?
Sure, absolutely. Decker, what do you feel is the key to work life balance?
Wow, I'm probably the wrong guy to talk about work-life balance. I've spent a lot of time um, here, um, and fortunately, my wife has helped with the balancing. Um, but I think you do have to take time just to. And I love to play golf, so that's my happy place. And it takes about 4 hours to do that. So, and I just kind of immerse myself in that. So try not to, if I can get away with not answering the phone, I try to do that. But finding whatever that niche is and then dedicating yourself to it, I think helps with that balance. And you have to get away from it. You have to just, that's what you have to do. So, and I'm better at taking vacations now, short little vacations, and just letting somebody else be in charge. I wasn't always that good. So that's a great question, Sam, and you caught me a little off guard with it, but I'm okay with it.
That's a tactic of a great interviewer, Sam. You really challenged your audience here. Well, Decker, it's your turn. Like,
well, I
give
was going to
Sam a
ask
tough
Sam.
one.
I was going to ask Sam where she sees herself going, but she already kind of answered that. So I feel like a jackass at the Kentucky Derby with all of her credentials and my limited credentials, but she's obviously got a great future ahead of her. And I guess the question would be, do you see yourself moving up to the number one position, if you will, relatively soon? And are you ready for it?
So that's a tough question to answer. And I'll say that because there is kind of, three general tracks to becoming a city manager or a town manager. There's, go into a smaller community and just do it. I am a little more risk averse than jumping right into it, I think. So I feel like I would need a little bit more time. The second track is usually, start somewhere in a medium to larger size organization in a division and work your way up, which is something that's a little more comfortable for me. And then the third one is taking the MA route, the management associate route. And that is kind of contingent upon the way an organization structures that, right? Because that title means different things in different organizations, or it's used interchangeably with management analysts. So that one seems to be the closest to where I'll be going. But that also comes with doing my research on an organization. How is that structured? Is there succession planning? Is there a track that takes me from management associate to assistant two to an ACM to a CM? What does that look like? So those are some of the things that I'm thinking through in my last year of study.
Wow, that's impressive. I love the idea that she talked about, because Lauren, you know this from Iowa. A lot of the managers in Iowa are in small towns, and they just have to be everything everywhere. I admire that. You get your feet wet pretty fast. But I love Sam's deliberateness that she's kind of laid out, and I think she'll do just fine. I'm very confident of that.
We can't wait to see what you do, Sam.
Thank you both for saying so.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I'm going to change direction a little bit. Decker mentioned it. The ICMA conference was last held in Pittsburgh in 2007, so it's been a minute. And believe it or not, at that conference in 2007, I played the part of Sam. Okay, I was the emerging leader, and I was on a panel at that conference about intergenerational differences in the workplace, which is so funny to me being in Pittsburgh now, where I'm a little bit farther into my career. But it seems like still, 17, 18 years later, we are still talking about intergenerational differences. So I want to hear a perspective from both of you of what's really essential for our listeners to know to be successful working with different generations. And Decker, we're going to let you go first.
Yeah, I think this is overplayed a little bit. Like there's a big problem. I think you have to listen to your people. I think you have to challenge them. I think when they do well, you have to praise them, and I like to praise more than not. People need to know that they're doing good work and their work is meaningful, and it fits into the big picture. I think that's just true with everyone. If people are getting some feedback that they're doing well and they're doing what we think they should be doing, and they know it, I think they get motivated by that, and I don't think you have to overthink this, in my view.
The old "you get more flies with honey" approach. I love it.
Always,
I love it.
always, and everything gets done because of relationships. The
Yeah.
more relationships you have, the easier it is to attach to someone who knows more than you know, or has a relationship that will take you someplace. So you're exactly right, Lauren.
That's great advice, Decker. Sam, listen up, because I feel like it took me too long in my career to really figure this out, that the world runs on relationships. And I'm very much a tactical leader. I'm very like get things done. And I have missed opportunities in my career to be a caretaker of relationships. And I've gotten better at that over time. But um Decker, you're giving some really sound advice here, and I think you're really exceptional at that and have built a great reputation on it. So taking mental notes, Sam.
No, I appreciate that, and the fact that you're bringing up, relationships and not making too much out of the intergenerational differences. A lot of the times I feel like when I hear or am part of these conversations, it seems more of a one way conversation where it's what can the older generation learn from the younger generation. And I don't think I necessarily subscribe to that perspective. I think I see it as more of a dialogue, because I think something that we're intentional about in local government is trying not to spin our wheels, so to say. We don't want to duplicate efforts. We don't want to. We're the stewards of our taxpayers' money, and we want to honor that. And part of the way that we do that is having these conversations between younger workers, saying, "What have you tried? What has succeeded? What has fallen short? And why?" Having that kind of lessons learned conversation. So that way, when we try again, because we always should, we do it a little more thoughtfully and intentionally, and with the background context of what's been tried before. So I think it's important for younger workers to honor the legacy of the public servants who have come before them and have tried to answer these resilient problems. And they're resilient because they're complicated, right? So it's always nice to get a fresh perspective, but you also want to make sure that you're paying attention to what's been tried before so that you're not um, spinning your wheels, I guess is the best way that I could phrase that.
Yeah, great advice, great perspective. Anything else you want to add about helping our listeners be successful working with different generations? As you said, we want to learn from you too.
I think just being open minded, I think something that is part of the appeal of local government, or at least it has been to me in my studies, is um, this innovation mindset, this willingness to try new things. I think an important component of the success to have that leniency with our residents is keeping those channels of communication open, letting them know that there are new things that are being tried to try to meet the needs, and to give them some expectations of what that will look like. I think people love predictability. I think the public is more willing to try new programs, new attempts at community engagement if we have a very frank conversation with them about what that looks like. Um, I think it also lends itself to the transparency and accountability of government if you're very clear about where you're at in this program, what you're trying to do. And I think they'll let you experiment um, with that.
Good advice. Sam, what's the most thought provoking thing you've heard or seen so far at the conference?
So there was a keynote speaker during the opening ceremony that said, "Work to get yourself fired before you're fired,"
Hmm.
which the way that that was interpreted is don't follow the status quo and be the agent of innovation. Don't wait for something else to kind of pull you along that development. Be intentional about your growth and do it in a way that brings value both to yourself and to your community.
Good one. All right. Is there anything else that either of you want to share before we wrap up today?
I think I would just say be positive about what's going on in your community and your life. There's a lot of negatives that are out there, and you can find fault in lots of things, but trying to find the good that's going on in the community, the positive things, I think there's a lot to be grateful for here and a lot to be thankful for. And being positive sets a great tone in your work environment. And so I challenge folks to be more positive than not, and see the good in things and the good in people. And I think that's, from me, that's what my mantra is every day.
That's a really great way to wind us down, Decker, after you kind of opened the conversation talking about how you've seen this shift over your career toward incivility. So I like that. We gotta stay positive to counter the negative that's out there. Sam, what about you? Anything else that you want to talk about before we wrap up?
I think something that's been really important to me is spending some time in communities just playing tourist. And when I say playing tourist, I mean playing resident, and going out there in different communities and seeing what they've got, what their public infrastructure looks like, going out to visit their parks, going out to their civic spaces, what all is out there, just to kind of see what it's like and remind myself of the different lenses and way local government is seen. So I feel like in local government, sometimes it's hard for us to relate to residents and what all they may know or not know about our organization. And I try to remind myself of that by just going back out to those communities and walking around.
Yeah. That kind of reminds me of what Decker was saying about just being engaged in the community, joining the Rotary, being in the first tier. I think you're kind of talking about it more from a visitor perspective, but I think you're both kind of giving that message of be engaged, be visible, be present, be active in the community, kind of boots on the ground perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, thank you so much to both of you for joining the GovLove podcast. Sam, we're going to give you our closing question here, which is, if you could be the GovLove DJ, what song would you pick as our exit music for this episode?
I think in alignment with Decker's positivity, I'm going to go with Sunday Best by Surfaces.
I don't think I know this song. Are you going to sing it for us?
No, no, I will not.
Okay. All right. That's okay. I can't wait to hear it in production. So yeah, if it's got a message of positivity, then that's great. That's a great theme for our episode, and I can't wait to hear it.
It is. And Lauren, since you're around, maybe I'll make it up to you we'll find a karaoke place around, and we'll use Decker's advice of finding a karaoke spot, and I'll sing to you then.
I love it. Even better.
I need to see the video.
No problem.
Okay.
That's right. We're just inviting everyone to send you some selfies and connect Decker, and we're going to be one of those people.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right. Thanks so much. That ends our episode for today. I really appreciate our guests, Sam Badger and Decker Ploehn, for their insights. And we also want to thank our partner, ICMA. Thank you for listening. You can reach us at elgl.org/GovLove or on social media at GovLove Podcast. This has been GovLove, a podcast about local government.
Hey, feeling good, like I should. When in Durga, walk around the neighborhood. Feeling blessed, never stressed. Got that sunshine